Peace, family. It's your brother, Marc Lamont Hill. Welcome to the Marc Lamont Hill official YouTube channel. And more importantly, welcome to Night School. Every night here on the channel, Monday to Friday, we do Night School. We have a daily conversation about the most important issues, the most pressing matters, the most intense debates going on in our world today. But we don't do a news drive-by. We have a deep analysis. It is not a podcast. It is not a TV show. It is a global classroom. And tonight, we got a lot of stuff we got to get to. So let's get right to it, everybody. The U.S. House of Representatives voted to sanction the International Criminal Court. This sounds crazy to you, right? I already know what you're thinking. Did Mark read that backwards? Does he mean to say that the ICC, the International Criminal Court, is sanctioning the House of Representatives? No. You got it right. Congress, the U.S. Congress, the House chamber, is actually sanctioning the International Criminal Court. Why? Because, as you know, a couple weeks ago, the ICC started to pursue arrest warrants for Benjamin Netanyahu and Yoav Gallant, two leaders of Israel, Netanyahu, of course, being the prime minister. When the prosecutor filed a request for arrest warrants, it was in response to Israel's prosecution of a genocidal war in Palestine, in Gaza. Most of the world applauded, but not the U.S. Congress, and specifically not the Republicans in Congress. The Democrats at least had the decency to be silent cowards. The Republicans stood up and said, you know what? We are going to go after you, ICC. And they said it before. They said it months ago. I just didn't think they'd really follow through. I was like, I mean, come on. You're going to actually sanction the sanctioners? You're going to actually go after the International Criminal Court because they had the audacity, they had the temerity, they had the unmitigated gall to actually hold Israel accountable for its genocidal acts in Gaza. And just to be clear, the ICC also went after Hamas. They went after several leaders of Hamas for war crimes. And that's what the ICC investigates, war crimes. And they found some against Israel as well. So on Tuesday, in a vote 247 to 155, the House of Representatives denounced the court's announcement last month that held Israeli leaders, along with Hamas leaders, as I said, responsible for war crimes in Gaza. Now the measure will move to the Senate. Now, I don't know if Democrats will support this. You would need a lot of Democratic support for this to go through. It's not likely to pass through the Senate, they say, but this is an election year. It would not surprise me if Democrats were to throw away all of their principles, the little bit that they have. If they were to kowtow to political pressure, if they were to try to play to the center, they already got the American public's, kind of sense of this thing. But they know that if they go after the ICC, it doesn't cost them anything in the electoral arena. But it wins them some support from centrists. It wins them some support from Republicans. It wins them some support from Jewish voters. It wins them some support from voters who don't know what to do when they're deciding between Biden and Trump. The Congress continues to embarrass us. Now, the White House, for its credit, says that this is not something that we should be up to. The White House says that this is overreach. Let's be clear. The White House is not saying that the ICC is correct. In fact, Biden has gone after the ICC too. Biden has criticized the ICC. But Biden and the White House are simply saying it's technically an overreach. That's not what they should be doing. It's also not the only thing Congress is doing to embarrass us on this matter. Congress, as you know, already invited Netanyahu to address them in a joint meeting of Congress this summer. And all that's going to do is further inflame things. It's going to make Republicans look like they're being reasonable. Democrats aren't going to show up. They're going to be called anti-Semitic, and they're going to say that they're boycotting the speech because of Netanyahu's extremism. And the problem with that is that it continues to frame the problem not as a fundamental problem of how Israeli society is organized, but as a specific problem around the Netanyahu government, as if Netanyahu was an outlier and not part of a fundamental issue with an apartheid state. So it's all messy. It's all crazy. And this decision to go after the ICC to grandstand, and that's all you're doing, is even messier and even crazier. What does it mean to sanction the ICC? It means that not only do they get this kind of verbal rebuke, but there are people in the Republican House that are saying anybody who's connected to the ICC, anybody connected to this decision, including Prosecutor Khan, won't be allowed into the United States. They won't be allowed to travel freely. They're going after them the way we should be going after the Israeli war criminals. But that'd be too much like right. Anyway, let's move on to something else related to Israel-Palestine, and that is another European country throws its hat in the ring in condemnation of Israel's war crimes. Slovenia is the latest country to recognize Palestinian statehood. The European country made its decision with 52 votes in favor of recognizing Palestine and no votes against recognition. Day by day, there is growing international support for Palestinians amid Israel's horrifying attacks in order to occupy the West Bank, engage in a siege in Gaza, have unequal rights in Israel. All of these things have made it easy to have international rebuke. But it's not enough to have international rebuke of Israel. In some ways, that's the easier part. What does that mean for Palestinians? Statehood has to become the answer. And so last week, Spain, Ireland, Norway, they all recognized Palestine. The Maldives took it a step further by denying Israeli citizens access at all, even if you have a dual passport. Again, I don't agree with that. I think that becomes collective punishment. I don't agree with that. But the EU is continuing to move on this issue in a very interesting and complicated way. Slovenia is the 7th country in the European Union among 27 that recognize Palestinian statehood. The question is, what does that mean in the grand scheme of things? The White House here in the United States continues to say that that's not a matter that we should be engaged in right now. The more powerful nations in the EU are saying something similar. In light of that, I don't know how much more than a symbolic gesture this is. And I also don't know if it's a matter of too little too late. If the EU had come forward 10 years ago, 5 years ago, as individual countries, I'm saying, and made these determinations around Palestinian statehood, maybe we'd be in a different place, but we're not. I think it's important to show the growing consensus of Palestinian support. I think it's important to show the growing consensus of critique of Israel. I think that's what we have to be. I think that's what we have to think about. I think that's what we have to do. But shout out to Slovenia. I reported a week ago that Slovenia would be coming around the bend. I reported a week or maybe even 2 weeks ago that Slovenia would be added to the list. There's another country that's going to be added to the list very soon as well. I'm optimistic. I'm not optimistic that this ends easily. I'm not optimistic that this ends soon, but I am increasingly optimistic, or at least hopeful, that in our lifetime, the current power arrangement will be looked at as absurd and unfair and unreasonable. And that will be entirely due to each individual nation's commitment to challenging what seemed like an unchangeable and unchallengeable status quo. Thousands of Israeli nationalists chant death to Arabs on a Jerusalem Day march. This, unfortunately, is a story that I've heard too many times and seen too many times with my own eyes. Thousands of Israeli nationalists took to the area in Jerusalem, East Jerusalem in particular, chanting death to Arabs. Every year, there's something called Jerusalem Day. And Jerusalem Day marks Israel's capture of East Jerusalem, including the Old City. That's where Aqsa Mosque is. That's where the Western Wall or the Wailing Wall is. That's where the Church of Sepulchre is. All this stuff is in Old City Jerusalem. It was captured in 1967 during the 6-Day War. And it's illegal to capture land through conquest, through war. It's illegal to keep land that you capture through force. East Jerusalem is not Israel's. East Jerusalem is contested territory at best. And the international consensus is that this is a final status decision, but ultimately Israel does not own East Jerusalem, and yet Israel continues to pretend that it does. And every year they commemorate Jerusalem Day, the day that they took the land by force. And they march and they go through the Palestinian areas, the Arab areas, the Muslim areas, the Christian areas, and they cause trouble. As you see here, they walk through East Jerusalem chanting, doing provocations, encouraging violence, incitement, right? They do Talmudic readings, they dance, they wave the Israeli flag, they do different things, which in and of themselves wouldn't be a problem, except you're doing it as you march through other people's land, you're on other people's house, you're on other people's property. And they do it to start fights, they do it to start violence, they do it to create problems. It is like a Klan march in the South, or the North for that matter. Let's not pretend. This is literally what they do on Jerusalem Day. And so today, Jerusalem Day was no different. They marched through East Jerusalem. They went right outside of Bab el-Amud, also known as Damascus Gate, yelling anti-Arab slogans, anti-Muslim slogans, chanting death to Arabs. In fact, it is an act of terrorism. I'm going to call it an act of terrorism. When you march through someone's land, threatening to kill them, provoking violence, and you have the power of the state behind you, it is terrorism. It is brutally ugly. It is, it's scary. It's awful. That's all I can tell you. And again, I've been in Jerusalem on Jerusalem Day. I've been in the old city. I've spent years doing research in East Jerusalem. And I can tell you, when they come through, it's violent, it's ugly, it's terrifying. And the thing even more terrifying than just settlers coming in and provoking you is the fact that you know that if you defend yourself or you fight back or you get angry or get provoked, that there's a military, there are police officers, there are guns, there are tanks, there are all kinds of weaponry that will put you in your place and not the other way around. So I don't want people to ignore this. Again, this will be a moment in history when people go back and look where they say, oh my God, how did we live through this? How did we allow this to happen? How did we witness this type of sheer brutality and barbarism and not respond? It's how we're going to think about this. It's how we're going to talk about this. But right now, we continue to ignore it. So as you're paying attention to Gaza, as you're paying attention to the awful, awful genocidal war that's being prosecuted by Israel against the people in Gaza, and it's a war on Gaza, do not lose sight of the West Bank. Do not lose sight of East Jerusalem, because settler violence continues, settler raids continues, settler expansion continues, and settler terrorism continues right here in East Jerusalem. All right, let's move on to the story in the United States. This story, again, is like, where are we? Is our country completely crazy? 2 professors in Texas want to flunk students who seek abortions and block them from employment. Daniel Bonavac and John Hatsfield, they teach at the University of Texas at Austin. Now, what they're arguing, to be specific and fair, is that pregnant students should not be able to get excused medical absences from class to get an abortion. And the reason, they say, is because pregnancy comes from a voluntary and consensual activity. They say that if a student has an abortion and misses, they shouldn't be able to pass the class. They shouldn't be able to get a job as a teaching assistant. It sounds crazy, but this is Texas. And when we talk about Texas and Florida, anything is possible. In fact, the only thing that seems to be stopping them is this pesky little thing called Title IX, which bars publicly funded schools from discriminating on anybody, against anybody based on sex and gender. So what do the professors do? Do they sit down and say, you know what, I don't like this, but I got to deal with it? No self-respecting white man would do that. Nah, instead they say, we're going to sue. We're going to sue the government. So now they have a lawsuit against the government where they say that it's unfair that they can't punish students for having abortions, academically punish them. And apparently they also are mad at students who are queer or trans. They want to punish teaching assistants for cross-dressing. They filed this lawsuit in Amarillo, Texas. That's not far from Austin. And it's not a coincidence. How far is Amarillo from Austin? I need to look that up, actually. Amarillo might be a little bit farther from Texas. But the point is, there's a judge there named Matthew Kaczmarek, who was appointed by Donald Trump. And this particular judge is very, 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 very hateful. In fact, the point is actually clear if I make this point to you. Austin to Amarillo is 468 miles. Is that right? Let me look that up. I know it's a 6-hour drive. Is that right? Princess, is that right? 468 miles? Yeah. Austin to Amarillo is 486 miles. So they didn't file the lawsuit in Austin where they are. They filed the lawsuit 6 hours away. You know why? Because the judge in the local town will be like, this is stupid. The judge an hour away will be like, this is dumb. The judge 3 hours away will probably be like, you know what? This is racist. And I'm from Texas, and I got to tell you it's racist. That's how they would be. They found the furthest judge more than 400 miles outside of Austin to do this. And you know why they did that? Because he's the one judge that would be dumb enough and hateful enough to approve this, because he has a history of being hateful. He once talked about the, quote, evils of making sexual revolutionaries. What the hell is a sexual revolutionary? It's not what you think it is. Whatever you think it is, it ain't that. It ain't nothing good. This judge hates queer folk. He hates gay folk. He doesn't like women's reproductive rights and freedom or justice. And so they're going to this judge hoping that this judge will allow this ridiculous lawsuit to go forward, which will basically say that if you take time off of school with a medical excuse, and the excuse is an abortion, you flunk class. And their reason is because they say it was from a voluntary and consensual activity. You know how stupid that is? What if I got the flu and I was sick? I get a medical excuse. You know, I got the flu. I'm going to the club, going to a party, maybe playing pickup basketball, maybe making out with somebody. You know, I'm talking about me as a hypothetical college student. You know, maybe I got it performing mouth-to-mouth resuscitation on somebody who's dying in a restaurant. I mean, whatever. These are all voluntary and consensual activities. So if your measure is you don't get a medical excuse if it's from a voluntary and consensual activity, what the hell does that mean? If I break my leg playing basketball, I can't get a day off? I mean, how stupid is this? How stupid is this? But they're not worried about consensual or voluntary activities except sex. They're not worried about sex except pregnancy. They're not worried about pregnancy except abortion. This is just an end run around abortion. This is another way to punish women. It's another way to grandstand. It's another way to have a stupid ass campaign to draw attention. I'm almost embarrassed that I'm bringing it up, but I have to bring it up because y'all need to know what's at stake this election cycle. Y'all need to know what's at stake every single day. They are coming for women's rights, and they're not stopping at any moment. All right, y'all. Before we go, I want to tell one more story. It's about this Actually, I'm gonna tell two more because I didn't want to tell this one. I'll save it for last. I was gonna skip this crazy woman in Georgia, but I'll tell you the crazy woman in Georgia story in a minute. But let me talk about something else first. A panel of U.S. Federal Court of Appeals. A panel of a U.S. Federal Court of Appeals blocked a venture capital firm's grant program for Black women entrepreneurs, concluding that a conservative group's case alleging discriminatory practices would probably succeed. In a 2-1 ruling, the panel of a U.S. Court of Appeals for the 11th Circuit in Miami, Florida, found a suit would likely be successful in claiming that Fearless Fund, I think I've heard of this, Fearless Fund, a program dedicated to funding Black women business owners, violates the 1866 Civil Rights Act. The suit brought by the American Alliance for Equal Rights was led by Edward Blum, the same conservative activist who was behind the case that led the Supreme Court to end affirmative action in college admissions. Conservative groups have been waging war on countless corporate diversity programs for a while now. And Edward Blum is like at the forefront. He's one of the people like Christopher Rufo and others who are like, we got a mission to change America. And in some ways to dial America back to the way it used to be, what they call the good old days, or America being great again, what I call racism, Jim Crow, American apartheid, all those things. And what they basically want to do is make America colorblind. They want to pretend that any acknowledgement of color, any examination of race, any consideration of who we are is in and of itself an act of racism. And because it is in and of itself an act of racism, we have to legally eliminate it. So to consider people's race in education or schooling is racist. To have a special program in public schools for poor Black kids is racist. To have a medical relief program for Asian students from a country, or African students from a country, or European students from a country that has a particular health outcome that we want to undo, they can say it's racism. You can't just do that for those students. You got to do it for all the students. They want to pretend that racism is any acknowledgement of race. And so now they're saying that the Fearless Fund, which is simply saying, look, Black women have struggled in this country to access capital. Black women in this country have had special mechanisms against them that undermine their ability to open businesses. So what are we going to do? We're going to make a fund to support Black women. That seems like a good thing. These are hyper-capitalists, right? These are free market fundamentalists. These are people who believe that we can buy and sell and spend our way to freedom. And so they're saying, all right, well, let's put a little extra, fuel in the engine of Black women so that they can open businesses. And they say, that's racist. Helping Black women is racist. Any kind of corporate diversity is racist. And the U.S. Federal Appeals Court is saying that when they sue, they're probably going to win. And I don't know if that means they agree with the lawsuit, if they're just saying, look, the suit is going to win, so we got to keep moving this way. But either way, my. This is bad. This is bad, y'all. I can't stress enough how bad this is. Because it's bad enough that affirmative action is on a chopping block. It's bad enough that everything else is on the chopping block. But now we can't even invest in our own community. We can't even support Black women. And everybody, I want you to see the relationship between these court decisions and Trump and our voting. So I'm not saying vote blue or die. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying you can't have a third party vote. I'm a third party voter over many years. But what I am saying is there's a direct relationship between these court decisions and who appoints the judges. So whatever decisions we make electorally, we have to keep that in mind too. But this is nasty work, y'all, as the kids say. Nasty, nasty. All right, y'all, we're going to take one more break. When we come back, I'm going to have a final word about y'all friend in Georgia. All right, y'all. Welcome back to Night School. A Georgia state representative accused of lying about being a member of the Black Greek letter organization, the sorority Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, is saying that she's sorry. But she's also saying she's still a Delta. She's still claiming to be a member. Democratic Representative Angela Moore has been presenting herself as a Delta. She's posted old pictures of her throwing up Delta hand signs. She's talking about her sorors on the floor of her chambers. She even posted a photo of herself, her headshot, inside of the organization's frame. But just the day before she got reelected in May, Amarise L. Johnson, who is the Southern Regional Director for the sorority, released an official statement saying that Representative Moore is not a Delta. Now, if that wasn't enough, then the executive director of the organization said in a statement that after conducting an extensive review of membership records, after speaking with her alleged initiation chapter, and even after contacting Moore herself several times for details, they officially confirmed that she is not a member. Now, that ain't enough. It should be enough, because it ain't that hard to prove you're a member if you're not a member. It shouldn't be that hard. But in an exclusive interview with Channel 2, the woman apologizes. Angela Moore, Representative Angela Moore from Georgia, says, "I'm sorry for putting all of y'all through this." She apologized for it. So you would think that'd be a dead matter. No, it's not. You know why? Because she apologized for all the stress and all the drama, but she still says that she's a member. She says she pledged under her former married name, but changed her name after the divorce. She says that's why her current name doesn't match her Delta name. Okay. That seems plausible, questionable, shady, unlikely, but plausible. Maybe you did pledge under a different name, and you're saying it's not your maiden name. You're saying you got married before, and whoever you married gave you a last name, and you were pledging under that last name. Okay, so let's just look up the married last name and find out. Well, they asked her what that former last name was that she had when she got into that marriage. And you know what she says? She says, and I quote, "I refuse to tell what my former married name was." I refuse to tell what my former married name was. She lying. Let's just start there. I know in the news I'm supposed to say these allegations look questionable or there's some serious. No. She lying. She is lying. She lying. Let me tell you why she lying. First of all, anybody who pledges, especially in undergrad, with that 99.999% of the time, you went through so much. You did so much to make that process complete that you have photos, you have records. I'm talking about probate photos, and she's much older than, I don't say much older. She seems, based on when she graduated college, she would have pledged during the time where pledging was above ground. That means that she should have pictures of her marching the yard. She should have pictures of her at a probate. There should be a picture of her with a jacket. There should be pictures of her doing something. Now, you ain't got to wear that stuff. I don't wear paraphernalia, but I'll tell you one thing. If somebody asked me when I pledged, I could tell them. If somebody asked me where I pledged, I could tell them. If somebody asked me who my dean was, I could tell them. If somebody asked me who my line brothers were, I could tell you. If somebody asked you how many was on my line, I could tell you. She ain't answered none of them questions. She could dead all of this with some photos, but she ain't got one. The only claim she has of being a Delta is stuff like you looking at right now on the screen. Her putting her own face with her own Photoshop on a Delta symbol, looking like she going home to be with the Lord. That's how you know she ain't no Delta. That ain't how Deltas make pictures. That's how dead people make pictures. That's how funeral directors make pictures. She ain't no Delta. If she were a Delta, somebody by now would say, that's my Sans. That's my line sister. That's my LS. Was she a solo? Because unless you were solo, somebody would have said, I know her. Somebody would say, I was her profile. I made her. Somebody would have said, she was my profile. She made me. Somebody would say, I was the dean. Or if it's the new era, I was their membership intake coordinator. I helped them cross the burning carpet. Somebody would be saying something. But you telling me that you pledged, but nobody saw you. Nobody knows your name. Nobody's in your chapter. Nobody was on your line. Nobody made you. Nobody was made by you. Nobody can ever claim that you were Delta. And then you say the membership rolls are wrong because they got the wrong name. And we say, well, wait a minute, show us the right name. And you say, I refuse to tell you the right name? Oh, you lying. You just lucky you grown and famous, because back in the day, in the Greek picnic era, at least in Philly, if you walked down the street throwing up mids and you wasn't one, if you had on t-shirts and you didn't earn one, it would get ugly. I'm not advocating violence. I actually think that's the wrong approach, but I'm just saying you real comfortable out there in the state house because you talking crazy. Maybe this is a super lie. I don't understand why people perp. Why do people pretend to be part of the organization if they were not, if they are not? Y'all almost always get caught. It used to work before the internet, but now people got too much evidence. They got too much proof. They got too much communication. Somebody walked up to me right now and said, Mark, I don't think you a capper. I could make two phone calls. And matter of fact, it wouldn't even take two. I could make one phone call and dead it. If you're Alpha, a Q, a SG Rho, a Delta, a AKA, a Iota, a Sigma, a Zeta, one phone call to somebody, especially if you made right, will kill all of it. But not one person has vouched for you. Now, here's the thing. We grown. People say, why do you care about Greek letter organizations? Why do you care if she's serving the people? Why does it matter? Here's the problem, Angela Moore. God, that photo look, I swear to God, every time I see it, I feel like she done gone up in that golden chariot. When you lie about something small, you lie about something big. If she had said that if she hadn't said she was a Delta, but instead said that she was a registered nurse, and we went to her college records and found she didn't go to college, or we found out she didn't major in nursing and that she didn't have an RN, I'd be just as outraged. If she said, I've been a lifelong deaconess at Beulah Baptist Church, and we went to Beulah and they said, we ain't never seen her before, I'd be just as upset. If she said that she served in the military and it turned out she wasn't even a crossing guard, I would be just as upset. And upset's not the right word. I'm actually not upset. I'm disgusted. I'm annoyed. I think this is ridiculous. You're lying about what you did. You are not trustworthy. And when you have an opportunity, because all humans make mistakes, all humans lie, all humans mess up. But when you have an opportunity to correct it, and your response is to double down on the lie and then tell a lie so absurd and implausible that you insult our intelligence, that makes me wonder what else you're lying about. It's not just you. Joe Biden did the same thing. Joe Biden told us he was the valedictorian of his law, he graduated top of his law class. That's a unnecessary, stupid ass lie. Donald Trump lies all the time. These lies are windows into your character. They make me question everything you've ever said. That's the actual issue here. So yeah, you being a Delta is dumb. That's a dumb lie. But it reflects a bigger lie, And I got to be honest with you, it's probably going to ruin your career, because I don't know anybody. Remember, you in Georgia, you in the ATL area. Every Negro in America going to be mad now. They all know you a liar now. They're not going to vote for you. And the next time you run, which is going to be in 2 years, they're going to run a Delta against you, just like they did this time. Except now everybody know you not one. Every Delta in America, Deltas are going to move to Georgia, buy houses just to vote your ass out. And so are the Q dogs, because they be riding too. And you know what? So are the Noops on the strength of Crimson and Creed. You know what I'm saying? And so is everybody else, because we hate liars. We hate liars. And you, Angela, if that's your real name, are a liar. Anyway, y'all, thank you for watching Night School. It's been another great episode, another great conversation. Make sure you hit the like button so that you let the YouTube algorithms know that our independent media project works. Hit the subscribe button so you can help us expand our footprint in the media landscape. And if you're so inclined, hit the join button and become a monthly supporter of the channel. When you do that, you allow us to survive and thrive. If you can't be a monthly supporter, although joining you can do for only $3.99 a month or more, make a one-time donation right now. Go to Cash App, PayPal, Venmo, or Zelle. You see it on your screen. And make a one-time donation to the channel for the month. It would allow us to pay our staff, to expand our reach, to support our vendors, and to create more space on the podcast, including building a studio. We can do all of that with your support. We can only do this with your support. We don't have corporate media behind us. We don't have a billionaire check underwriting us. The only thing we have is the power of the people. So if everybody watching right now who hasn't already, if everybody watching right now could donate $10 just for the month, $10, it would allow us to meet our financial goals. If everybody could just go to Cash App right now or the others and donate $10, it would allow us to meet our goal. Of course, we appreciate when people do more. We appreciate all the people who buy monthly subscriptions. Some of you have bought dozens of monthly subscriptions for others. That is an extraordinary donation that we're grateful for as well. Whatever you can do, we ask to do it. In the meantime, make sure you follow Night School on Instagram. We have a Night School MLH handle. Make sure you follow it. Make sure you spread that content, because that's the best way you can be an evangelist for the show, is to spread the content and spread the word. Until tomorrow, I'll see you later, everybody. Peace.